Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, or if this is your first time, welcome. Hi, hope you enjoy. How you going? So today I've got a bit on today. This is actually my first day off in a week and a half. I've actually going to do some filming with Shay in the city today, so we're meeting up. So I thought I would do my makeup and film it, and I thought I'd add a bit of a story, just kind of like my last one when I was introducing myself a bit. I thought today, while I'm doing my makeup and showing you how I'm doing it and stuff like that, I would talk about my hip issue. So I briefly mentioned that I've had a hip replacement, so I thought I'd go in a bit depth about my condition I was born with my hip and everything I've gone through, because it's in depth. I had a lot of complications, but hopefully I get it all in this video. But let's get started.
Nothing out there could ever stop me.
Okay, so I never know what I'm going to be doing when I do my makeup. I kind of just pick a palette and then go from there. As mentioned, a lot of my eyeshadow palettes are Jeffree Star, so I thought today, since I've only used this maybe once or twice, I'd use from the Banana Fetish, because yellow is my favorite color, and come up with a little something. I'll see how I go, and I usually just wing it and have no idea what I'm doing. But yeah, so let's get started. I already moisturized my face, so I'm going to do all the primer and all that type of stuff, and then the base of makeup and everything like that. So I'll get started from there. So while I'm getting all that started, so I briefly mentioned in my past video that I've had a hip replacement. I had that done when I was like, I think I was 26. I feel like this headband's not going to last. I think it was. It's been ages. I'm 35 now, so I think I was 26. So I was born with a dislocated hip and a shallow hip socket in my left hip. So a dislocated hip should be picked up when you're born. It's one of the tests that they do when you're a newborn. Basically what it is that when they move your baby's legs around and they measure your legs, that's how they usually pick it up. Unfortunately, mine wasn't picked up when I was born. The theory is when they did it, they would pop it back in place. And so when they measured my legs, they were actually measured the same. So it didn't get picked up when I was a baby. So it didn't get picked up until I was about 3, I think it is, because I had started walking and stuff like that. Basically, Mum said, you know, I never complained that I was in pain or anything like that. I would just complain I was tired. So doctors couldn't find anything. They would check my knees, they would check my ankle, knees, everything, and they kept going, no, she's completely fine, nothing wrong. So Mum decided that when we went to Queensland, she was going to make me walk everywhere. So because I used to always complain I was tired, and she would put me in the pram and then push me around. So she decided I'm going to make her walk everywhere. That clearly worked, because went back to the doctors, and the doctors basically went, that wasn't there before. So yeah, before I move on, I'm just trying to think what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to do a bit of a lighter makeup, so I'm probably going to start off with this one right here. So they eventually decided to do some x-rays and stuff and discovered that I had a dislocated hip and a shallow hip socket. So, which, fine and dandy, something that should have been picked up when you're a baby, and it's easy to fix when you're a baby. They put you in a brace, and then that should fix it. Unfortunately for me, I had to have surgery. So when I was about 4, I had to go in and they had to fix the dysplasia. So basically what they did is they popped it back in place, and then they put 2 pins, put it in my hip, and then what they did then was put me in plaster. So I had plaster from my armpits down to my ankles with a big bar between my legs, so my knees had to sit out like this, and so my legs were out like that. That that's how they fixed it, which is always great fun. Going in with this one now. And so that was fun for my mum, who was definitely a single parent by then. So my dad died when I was 1, so fun times for her. So I was in and out of hospital for quite a few months. So I had that done, then I had to go back in and get the pins taken out, and then I was only in plaster from my hips down, roughly. I only remember bits and pieces. Not a whole lot I can remember. So I do remember very small things. So for example, I remember complaining about having plain toast for breakfast. I remember that part. I remember vomiting constantly after the surgery. I remember trying to escape the bed they had me in. I remember trying to get out of it, but I was in plaster. But I remember the night when I was vomiting, I remember I would vomit. I remember having the nurse come in and she'd clean me up and rotate me, and I'd vomit again, same gist for everything. And then I remember them taking the plaster off, don't know if it was the first or second time, and bawling my eyes out because of the little chainsaw that they have to do the thing. And I remember sitting in a bath afterwards and trying to straighten my legs and having all the plaster. So there's bits and pieces I remember, very traumatic parts clearly. And I remember I had to relearn to walk, and I had a walker. And I remember someone coming to our house to decorate it for Christmas. So there's bits and pieces I can remember from before. You know, go figure, you always remember certain tragic parts of your life. But yes, I do remember them things, to be precise. Okay, I'm going to go in with this one in the crease, and then I'm going to go in with the dark one just at the end. So that's fine and dandy. So we had all that happen when I was a kid, and then I had to go back into hospital every 2 years to get checked. They did say I'd have to have another surgery later down in life, which we were prepared for. But it didn't stop me as a kid. I did a lot of dancing. Dancing's one of my favorite things to do. I have zero flexibility thanks to this, but I was able to keep dancing. I did that. I did netball. Swimming was my go-to because no gravity. So I was a really, really good swimmer. Unfortunately, I had a shit coach, so I quit. I could have actually been an Olympian, not to toot my own horn or anything like that. But yeah, so I, sorry, that's a bit better. So then when I was about 13, that's when they said, look, she's going to have another surgery. They will wait until I was basically fully grown, because they wanted to now fix the shallow hip socket. So hip dysplasia, pretty easy, hip came out. So pretty much when I walked, socket, ball. Every time I walked, my hip would just come out of its thing. And that's why, I don't know why I didn't, supposedly mum said I didn't complain that I was in pain. Then, so shallow hip socket, meaning that, didn't think this through, put it down. So you have a full socket for the ball. Mine is not fully formed, so it sits kind of like this. So, well, it's not fully covered. So your socket should go straight over the ball of your hip. Mine only kind of sits this, which is why it caused the hip dysplasia. So they decided that at 15, I would need this surgery. They wanted to fully recode my hip. You know, didn't know about much these, like back then, you know, we're going, oh, what am I? Don't make me do the maths, but I was 15 when I had to have this surgery. Mum being a single parent didn't, you know, we just listened to the doctors. Okay, if that's what she needs to have, well, that's what she needs to have. I had a lot of complications. So I remember one of the first things they said to me when I was having the surgery, in a nutshell, the reconstruction, what they do is they cut the socket and they moved it down and put 2 giant bolts in there. That's pretty much what they did. They were trying to make me have more of a socket and to help me prevent from having a hip replacement at a young age. You get to that in a minute. So basically, I had all the surgery and everything. Before I had the surgery, they said, look, there's a 1 out of 100 chance you'll get this nerve damage, which is caused when your foot drop. They call it just a foot drop. So you just don't have control of your foot. And I went, well, I'm going to be that case because I don't have the best of luck when it comes to these things. So I said, yep, you just jinxed me by telling me that 1 out of 100. Because, you know, that's usually how my odds always go. And, sorry, my dog's just looking at me. So I was like, okay, sure. We'll just see what happens. Before I continue, I'm going to go in with this. And then I think I might go with that one. So, had the surgery and everything. So before going into it, they told me that I shouldn't need to be in a wheelchair. I should only be on crutches for, I think it was 3 months they promised me. I think, or it could have been less. It wasn't a long time. I do remember them stating, you know, I shouldn't have to be on crutches or a wheelchair or anything like that, which fine and dandy. I'm not going to complain on that, because that was like the one thing I was in high school. I didn't want to be in a wheelchair. I didn't want to be in crutches. You know, high school's hard enough, let alone dealing with all that. So, all done. And then I got the foot flop. So I ended up having that, but it ended up being a lot serious than just a simple drop of the foot. So basically, I suffered, which I find out later down the track, a lot later, but basically I suffered permanent nerve damage to my sciatica. So what happened during the surgery when they were cutting into me, my surgeon basically noticed some scar tissue on my sciatica nerve, and he's like, oh, just clean it up. He didn't like it. So my sciatica went, you know what, screw you, I didn't like that you touched me, and it went. So I couldn't feel anything in my left leg. I had an epidural tube, which didn't probably help in that scenario, but yeah, so it wasn't very happy that it got tampered with. So that was not a good start. So so coming out of surgery, all that, had an epidural, you know, I had a catheter, everything. So I couldn't feel anything from the waist down. I, being a 15-year-old teenager, also got stuck in the child ward at the Children's Hospital. So I wasn't with anyone my age. I was with a lot of kids a lot younger than me, which, look, you know, the Children's Hospital does what they do, but I'd never had a good experience with them, unfortunately. Yeah, before I move on. Okay, so I'm up to doing base now. Okay, so after surgery, so I wasn't like, I was a pretty sarcastic kid, and depressed, clearly, going through something like that. So they would do all these tests and stuff, and I was just a bit of a smart ass back to them and everything about it, which you do when you're like 15 going through something like that. And, oh no, this is coming off my ears. So I basically, there was signs that there was some issue going on, but it was completely ignored. So for example, I remember this very distinctively. I remember I wanted to get out of the hospital bed, clearly, and basically I remember them putting me in the wheelchair so I could go down and get Macca's. And I remember sitting in the wheelchair, and I remember getting hot flashes. You know, like when you know you're gonna vomit, you get really clammy and hot. Similar. I wasn't gonna vomit, but that same intense feeling, and I was screaming in pain. And they were like trying to figure out what was causing it and everything. I was just in a lot of pain. And I remember they just moved my wheelchair notch like down so I could lean back a bit, and the pain went away. And that was it. So there were signs there was something else going on, but it was totally ignored. So basically, I was in hospital for about a week. I wanted out. I was done. Like I said, I was put in the real young kid ward. I think I was the oldest, and I think the next one under me was probably about 8. So I was not with people my own age, and then I could hear, you know, kids crying and stuff like that, and all this, and it was just, you know, I wanted to go home. There was other little bits and pieces that I experienced, which I won't go into details, probably a bit too TMI there. So basically got home, and I had to be in a wheelchair because I had foot drop. So I could not do, I literally couldn't flex toes or anything. So I ended up had to be in a wheelchair, which we weren't prepared for. So we had to hire a ramp, we had to hire a wheelchair, we had to hire all this equipment. So, and trying to get it in a car and everything, we weren't prepared for this at all. So got home, and the next 6 weeks was intense. I mean, intense. I didn't start rehab till months later, because there was, Mum was told by a nurse that someone would get in contact to book it all, and when we hadn't heard anything, she called them and like, oh no, you were meant to make the booking. So there was a lot of miscommunication, but you know, like, I don't want to go into too, because like I said, Children's Hospital, I just had a bad experience. But so I was at home in constant pain. So it was nothing to do with my hip, it was to do with my sciatica. So because my sciatica went, the pain I was in was intense, and they made me have to put a foot brace on. So brace was to keep my foot up, which probably didn't help with the pain because it stretches that sciatica. And I remember the pain is like my foot was being put in acid, and my foot was just like burning away. That's the type of pain I was, and it would come on all of a sudden. I'll be happy dandy, next minute, pain. I actually at one point told my mum to kill me because I couldn't deal with it. She took me to the local doctors, and they gave me some painkillers, and it worked. And she's like, what is that? Does that come in tablet form? Because they injected it to me. I said, yes, it does. So Mum had to come up with a pain schedule. So she had to write down when I could have a certain medication that wouldn't clash with this medication. She would have to wake me up at 3 AM in the morning just to medicate me, so I wouldn't wake up half an hour later in pain. So very, very, very stressful. So we didn't start rehab, like learning how to walk and all that, till ages, and I mean like ages. So I remember going in, so after I started getting, I was very independent. I was able to gradually get back on my own feet, and Mum could go back to work. I remember one thing to stop the pain that I was in was to bend my knee. So I would bend my knee up to the top, to my chest, and I find it must have put a kink behind my knee, and would stop a lot of the pain. But because I had an epidural and I wasn't walking or doing any rehab, I lost all muscle density in my left leg. And I mean, like, the fat and the muscles hanging. Like, my leg was skinny because all the muscles weren't getting used, so they were just hanging. So over the time, because I had spent 6 weeks with basically my knee bent, when the muscles were starting to come back, I seized my knee and I could not straighten my whole leg. And I remember going to the toilet, because I learned how to system to go from the wheelchair to the toilet. I went to go put my foot on the ground just so I could pivot, and I couldn't even touch the floor. I couldn't even straighten my leg to touch the floor. Before I continue, so under the eye bit, I'm going to do a weird combo. I'm going to do this hot pink and then blend it out with this bright yellow. Right, so we finally went to, I remember the 6 weeks leading up to all these issues. we would constantly go to the doctors and I'd be like, look, I think something's wrong. Oh, no. It's just because you're not walking. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I knew my body. I knew something was wrong. And they kept brushing it off. Oh, no. It's fine. It's because you're not walking. Cool. So when I started getting on the crutches a bit more, oh, no. It's because you're walking. You're moving around a bit more. It's normal. So they kept blowing off the issue that I was having. And I'm like, nah, there's something wrong. No doctor wanted to listen to me. So I didn't actually have any of my follow-up appointments with my actual surgeon. These were all just other doctors. And I think we went in and he was doing all like the random, you know, movement tests and stuff like that. And I think it got to where he went to go straighten my leg and he went to go push down and I was like, no. And he's like, what? I'm like, I can't straighten my leg. And he's like, oh, that's new. Yep, been trying to tell you for quite a while now. So that was fun. So they had to go, okay, so that's when rehab, I think, started. Was not long after that. And then they had to put another brace to help straighten my knee. So that was so fun. So they made a brace to help start pushing my knee down. I have to wear it all the time. Now, might I add, you remember I said wasn't meant to be in a wheelchair, was meant to be on crutches for 3 months. In a nutshell, I was in a wheelchair for 6 weeks and on crutches for 6 months. More details to come on that. So, had all those complications. They ignored the nerve thing for ages. Eventually got to a point where they're like, oh, there's nothing we can do except for more surgery. And then I was like, well, okay, sure. And that was because I didn't have any feeling at this point. So that was their solution. Well, we really can't do anything. It's fine. Okay, sure. We just take it. And then basically so we did all that. And then I think it was so many months later, the knee wasn't getting much better. Like, it had straightened a little bit, but not a whole lot. Oh, another thing they promised me, I was not going to be in plaster. So we're getting there. So turn around, and then he's like, okay, we only have one solution to fix this knee. We need to put you under, and we're going to straighten the knee as much as possible and plaster it. So it stays straight. Right. Okay. I was promised that I wasn't going to have to go into any plaster, but okay. We agreed to it. They said just for 2 weeks. Okay, that's fine. So we did that, and then I had the surgery. Well, I didn't have surgery. They put me under, straightened my knee, put me plaster. Now, you think to straighten a knee, what type of plaster do you think? Where would the plaster be? You think it would just be around the knee? No, that would be the smart thing to do. They had plastered me from my hip down to my toe, the whole leg. Now, there was no issue when I was a kid having that because, you know, I hadn't hit puberty yet. I got my period during that, didn't I? I couldn't, like, fucking, like, it was hard. And then there was another issue because they had plastered me so high up above my bum, like where the bum crease is. I went to the toilet and it tilted me and I pissed all over the floor. So we had to go to our local doctor and they had to cut a section out so I could actually sit on the toilet. So as you can see, I've had a lot of fun dealing with this shit. Then, so after 2 weeks, we went back to the doctors and he's like, look, it's not really fully straight. So we want to put you under again, take that plaster off, straighten it again and put more plaster. I cracked it. And now my mum will attest to this. It was the first time in a very long time she couldn't get me to do anything. I was like, no, it's coming off. They're like, oh, and I'm like, nope, it's coming off. I don't want it on, I want it off. They're like, oh, but I'm like, nope, no, it's coming off. I don't care how, it's coming off. And they kept going, well, guess your leg's never going to be straight again then if you don't do it this and do it that. And I was like, no, it's coming off. I don't care. I don't care how, don't care when, it's coming off. I'm not doing this for another 2 more weeks. I was turning 16. I didn't want any more of this shit. I was already going through hell at school with all this and depression and everything. So I was like, no, I don't want it. I want it off, get it off. And I said, I will prove you fucking wrong. I am going to get my leg straight. So I said, I will do it my own way. So I cracked my shits, as I do. I was very stubborn. So I removed the plaster and I was like, I'm just going to do it my own way. That was the last time I think I went into the doctors, was to see them. I could have, or maybe one more time. Because I was getting to that age where I was too old to go to the children's hospital. So I might have gone in one more time before I turned 18, just as the final, like, check up to make sure everything is healing fine and so forth and all that. But yeah, so I got it straight on my own thanks to dancing. I did Rocker Stafford while I was in high school, and like, it was a struggle, but I got there. Now, so I think I might end for one more checkup, possibly, and then whatever, done. And then when I was about in my early 20s, I was having serious pain, like ridiculous. Like, I couldn't do much. My hip would lock a lot. So I remember got a referral and I saw a doctor in Bacchus Marsh, which I won't name him, but if you tell anyone who his name is, there's a lot of people that will be like, that doctor is dodgy. But I went to him, had arthritis in my left hip, fine, had an arthroscope, fine, no issues, that's all done. He just cleaned it up. He said there was just a couple of cracks in the socket, just clean it up, make it so I can move. It was fine for a short period of time, and then things started getting worse again. But then I was having issues with my right hip. I was told that I might need surgery because that socket's not fully formed either. Formed more than the left one, but not as formed, which is fine. But then basically I went to him again, and then he was like, nah, there's nothing wrong. He didn't even bother to check either side. He just went, nah, done. My osteo at the time was like, nah, there's something seriously wrong. Can you please go get a second opinion? I was like, yep, cool. Went to my doctor, got a second opinion. Now this is like over a 2 to 4 year, like, trying to get everything done. So went and got a second opinion. I was referred to a doctor. He went, look, I'm your last resort. You come to me if you need a hip replacement. He goes, I'm going to refer you to someone who is great for young people. He is a top of his field when it comes to people with my issues, like knees and hips and all that, but for younger people. He will do everything in his power, all these other things, before any form of replacement. Like, cool, cool. Finally get around to it. Finally. And I'm sitting in his office to see him. And I'm like, by the way, he's Jit Barakuma, best orthopedic surgeon that I hands down. Anytime that anyone says they've got a hip and knee, I try to refer him. I'll go into all the details with him in a minute. But so I was sitting there waiting for my appointment, not far from the Children's Hospital, just some suites around there, because he works Children's Hospital too. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the other doctors' names. And I'm like, that doctor name next to his sounds familiar. Call Mum, I'm like, do you remember what my surgeon was in the Children's Hospital? And she's like, oh, I think it was this. I'm like, huh, I won't name him. Because he's the top one of the, well, I don't know if he still is, but was one of the top surgeons at the Children's, so I won't name him. And I went, oh, they work side by side. I'm like, go figure. So I saw Jit, and he went, look, he went and made me get an x-ray. And the first thing he says to me is like, I'm so sorry, there is nothing, you need a hip replacement. He goes, you have no cartilage left between your socket and your ball. You've been walking on this bone to bone. So they've just been grinding. He goes, that is why you're in so much pain. So there was a couple of times where if I'd be facing someone and I'd be having a conversation with them, someone behind me would talk, I would turn around, my hip would lock and I would crumble to the floor in pain. So there was a lot going on. So he basically went, you've got no cartilage left. You've been walking bone on bone for God knows how long. He's like, I'm so sorry you've been in this much pain and nothing's been done about it. But he goes, unfortunately, you need a hip replacement. Great. So I had to go, I did two things. I went on a waiting list because being young, it's going to be forever to get a hip replacement. But then I upped my private and health insurance and had to wait the 12 months. So whatever came first, we took. And I remember having one appointment with him and we were discussing all the past issues that I had and bringing up my sciatica pain. And he goes, okay, he goes, you know, you suffered permanent nerve damage to that sciatica. He goes, you technically could sue the hospital for, what's the word? Neglect. Don't pick on me for this. Neglection. Oh, I don't even know how to say it now. Anyway, for not picking it up and doing anything about it. So he goes, it's something that could have been fixed straight away if they picked it up. So he basically went, yep, okay. And we talked and I think he goes, oh, look, because of the issue that you had with your sciatica, I'm umming and ahhing how to do the hip replacement. So hip replacement, they usually go from the front or the side. But because of my sciatica, he was paranoid that if he upset it again, I could be paralyzed for the rest of my life. So it was a higher risk than normal, which is kind of scary at 26, I think, to possibly be paralyzed due to something that happened when I was a kid and wasn't fixed. So we finally got through with my private health. My private health came around, so I was able to do all through that. The Avenue, I've gone there for all my hip surgeries and my gastro sleeve. Top private hospital. If you can get there, if you're in private health, they're just great hospital. So had it all and everything like that. And on the day he decided, he goes, look, I'm too nervous about this sciatica. I'm going through the back. So you'll need 3 months off. And I'm like, great. Because with hip replacement, you can have, I think it's 6 to 8 weeks off if you go through the front or side. But because he went through all my muscle in my butt, I'd have 3 months off. I was like, okay, sure, let's do this. So had it all, no complications at all. It went really, really well. Like, I bounced back pretty quickly. One thing is I do bounce back pretty good. Was in hospital for 5 days. He did say to me, I only stayed an extra night than I had to because my blood pressure was quite low. And this is how I discovered I actually have low blood pressure. It's not to experience, it's only when I am extremely tired or stress, it really, really drops. So I had to start all my rehab stuff a little later in the hospital because I couldn't get up for long enough without passing out. So no issues with the surgery. It went really, really well. He did explain a few things with surgery. Because of the reconstruction, it's put my hip flexor at max stretch. Because of the way the bone sits and then the hip flexor stretch, it's so complicated. I'll try to put some photos up that I have to try to explain exactly what happened. But basically, because of the way the reconstruction's done and because I cut through the hip flexor, I also found out my hip flexor's nerves don't work. So he goes, for example, when you're doing like leg raises, you know, which trust me, with a lot of pole and stuff, I realized how much my hip flexors suck. You know, you're meant to use a hip flex. He goes, you get to a point where your abs full on take over because it's just the way they've always been. So he goes, look, you might not ever get full momentum back in hip flexor. It's just something you need to work on, but you've got to accept that the nerves are completely done. So they might come back, they might not. It's just reality. Another complication that was caused that I found out way later down the track. So that was another issue. But he's like, look, we can deal with that at a later date if it really bothers you. But for now, you know, everything went well. I had no complications after the hip replacement, per se. I had to sleep on my back for 3 months. That was not fun. I am not a back sleeper. I had to go on sleeping tablets because I couldn't do it. And then basically went back. He was like, "No, you're all good. Everything's healed." I don't heal the greatest from scars. I will post photos, but that's fine. So then everything fine and dandy. All that pain that I was in, completely gone. None of the issues that I was having, all gone. Great surgeon. He did explain to me that the surgery that they did when I was a kid, he's trying to prevent it happening to kids now, because it doesn't actually prevent hip replacement. It actually brings on a hip replacement actually a lot quicker than it should. Like I said, yay. So we got all that done. That's when I started gaining weight, was after the hip replacement. Now, I'll go in a whole nother detail about that in another video when I talk about my gastric sleeve. So I'll skip all that bull. But I was going back to him every so often just for a checkup, make sure everything's all good and stuff like that. No issues at all. And I was saying that I'm having issues with my hip flexor and stuff. He goes, "Look, we can do a hip flexor release." So that's, he would separate the muscle and the tissue in the hip flexor just to give it a bit more movement. So we had that. We did that. And there was a couple other things he said we could do, which he didn't want to do. One was shave down the part of my bone that sticks out. Like I said, I'll try to post and show you with the reconstruction. He goes, "Don't want to do that because it's not like you have a socket either." And then he said the other thing is the socket that I use had to go slightly bigger because of all the issues. So he says there is that, but there are things he doesn't want to do, which totally fair and fair enough. So would go back to him quite a few times. I actually, the stupid idiot me, went to him and go, "So this surgery I had when I was 15, I shouldn't have had it, should I?" And he actually said to me, he goes, "Belinda, why did you ask me that?" I said, "I want the truth." He goes, "No, you shouldn't have had it." So it's a really, as me and Mum discussed, like, Mum was a single parent, you know, and just followed whatever the doctors told her to do. So so my hip replacement, I should actually say, is a new technology. Well, it's not new anymore. It was back then. So when I was 26, it was only brand new for it was new, only been out for 5 years. It's specialized for young people. So with hip replacements, you can only have so many in your lifetime. Fair enough. So you can only have 2 to 3 in your lifetime, which, you know, sucks. Is that fluff? Oh, it was. So basically my one is ceramic on ceramic. So they last 30 years before you even have to think about getting it replaced again. So that way you're able to have a longer life without stressing that you need to get it fixed every 10-15 years. So plus that. Then so that's my hip. I saw him, might have been just after COVID or during. Like I said, COVID's really messed with my time frame. So I saw him after all my weight loss stuff. Like, he helped me. Like I said, I'll go into detail with the crossover between my hip surgeon and my stomach surgeon and stuff. He basically went, "You're fine. I don't have to see you for another 5 more years." So he gave me the all clear and everything like that. So, and I have never been in the best, I'm in the best shape of my life. Well, not right now because I've slacked off. But I was able to really focus on myself and get myself back up to where I want to be. So, yeah. So I hands down, one of the best surgeons. If I have anyone that I know that is having issues, I refer him. I said, "You should go see him. He's the best. He's great." You know, he helped explain a lot when it came to all my complications when I was a teenager. he explained a bit about my permanent nerve damage, and he also, you know, talked about how it could have been fixed if it was picked up pretty much straight away, which, like I said, there were signs when I was still in hospital, there was issues. He goes, it's a simple surgery. He goes, I had it happen to one of mine recently. She had some nerve damage. I was able to go in and fix it before it turned into anything. He uses me as a bit of a case study when complications and all that type of stuff. So he's brilliant. So definitely helped a lot. But it's been a very, very long time. I think, let's just say I've got the all clear at 30. So it's taken, well, I got diagnosed at 3. Let's just say, because I've had it since I was born, 30 years to be okay. So, yeah. I've just got to do one more coat of mascara. But, yeah, so I'm fine now. I don't really, like, I more have sciatica problems. So, actually, I'll go in a little bit more of that. So, the permanent nerve damage I have is basically, I only have like 80% feeling on the bottom of my foot. And then when I get massages, if I get anything that's very deep tissue from my knee down, if they run there like around the cuff, I can handle it. Boy, does it, the pain is ridiculous. It's like intense pins and needles feeling in the bottom of my foot. So you can press on the back of my knee, but I'll feel it in my foot. So it's actually the best way, anyone who's had a stroke kind of understands. I have my mum's best friend had a stroke, and trying to explain how I can feel pain, but sometimes I can't feel someone touch my foot. And she's like, oh, I understand that because of certain nerve damages. But yeah, and if I point my feet, I'll put a video of it. I can't actually point my feet properly. My toes tend to curl when I point, and if I try to flex, 2 of them stick together. I'll show a video. So there's a lot of nerve damage to my foot. Go figure, since I had hip surgery and the issues are on my foot. I've had some people think that there might be behind my knee on the sciatica where it might be kinked, why it's causing the issues, and when, especially when, yeah. So it's my biggest thing, but I've had it looked at, and there's nothing much really they can do because it's far gone. So it's just something I've got to deal with, and if I ever have surgery, just need to keep an eye on it so it doesn't lose the plot again. But yeah, so that's a quick rundown. If you have any questions about it, I'm happy to answer them. So I'm just going to finish this all up, and yeah. I forgot to film a little finish of the video, so I'm on my way to actually pick up Shay from the train station so we can head into the city. So this is the finished look. Nothing, just a bit of a casual look. I thought some natural light would be nice to show off the makeup, so nothing over the top or anything. So if you have any questions about my video, please comment down below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. And I hope to see you in the next video, and I hope you enjoyed. Okay, bye bye.